wondering how I got into this mix.
Concept of how to live your life. The person who is going to speak to you is one who's doing his life. He is doing his life in a unique way, a decentralized way. Right now, as he makes a tour around the United States, this is part of the tour, showing people how to live their life in a more decentralized way. That's a big theme that we have here at Nexus, and now you're going to get a chance to get some more information on how to do that. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Derrick Broze.
I got a cool mic here, and we got the cool Nexus stage. I thought these letters were gone, and this was really the main reason I wanted to be on this stage. So somebody get a picture of me in front of these letters, please. All right. So this is a cool auditorium. Hopefully more people will filter in. But either way, my name is Derrick Broze, and I'm here, thankful to be here at the Nexus Conference because really some of the people that are speaking, including we've heard from Jim and Colin Cantrell, who are the minds behind Vector and Nexus. They're a part of the team at least. And these are the people who are creating the technology, the decentralized technology that is going to revolutionize the future, and it's already really changing our world. So that's the role they play. They come in here and they have the real deep tech talks that goes over many of our heads, and we're like, yeah, okay, this is good stuff. I know it's going to help. I don't know what he's talking about, but I know it's going to help me in the future. So that's the role they play. I'm the guy that goes and lives it and puts it into practice and actually puts things like Bitcoin and soon Nexus and these kind of ideas into my everyday life, and then uses them as an example for others of how we can live decentralized lives. And as Terry mentioned, I've been doing a national speaking tour. It's called the Decentralize Your Life Tour, which is why the guys here at Nexus reached out to me, because my whole message is about decentralizing, unplugging, opting out, however you want to put it. But the message is this, is that we as individuals, we have the power to take care of our own lives, we have the power to organize, we have the power to decide what is best for our communities and best for our neighbors and best for ourselves, and that no centralized institution, be they corporate or state power or other institutions, have the right, or should have the right, to lord over us and tell us what's best for us and all these kind of things. So that's not the world we live in, though, unfortunately. Right now we're living in a world where it's very centralized and there's a lot of power structures that are involved. So my goal has been to, for one, to embody the decentralized lifestyle, to show other people that it actually can take place. I gave a talk yesterday in one of the other rooms, and I just want to reiterate this message, that there are people I've noticed in the Bitcoin cryptocurrency sphere who are exclusively involved because they believe it's a way to make a quick financial investment and to pad their portfolio, to get rich, these kind of things. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing, obviously we're seeing all the value that money can have and the use that money can have and that cryptocurrency can have. But I believe that we need to take a holistic approach to this decentralization. And that's why I love what they're doing with Nexus. Their motto is decentralize the decentralization. So it's not just about cryptocurrency. It's not just about governance. It's about decentralizing the internet. It's about decentralizing, I believe, the food production systems, decentralizing our education systems, decentralizing our relationships, and all these sort of things. And so this is the message that I've been promoting. I'm also an investigative journalist and an author of a few different books, and this is my way of promoting these messages. But my talk today is called My Path to the Decentralized Lifestyle. So that's what I'm already doing today, but what I want to focus on for this talk is how I was able to get to this point. What allowed me to get to this point where I could be able to tell you I haven't paid taxes in 7 years, I don't have a bank account, I don't have a checking account, I get paid for my journalism using Bitcoin, I travel using cheapair.com and pay for my flights in Bitcoin, buy hotels in Bitcoin. My speaking fee is coming in Bitcoin for this conference. I'm not going to take US dollars. It seems kind of silly to me to come to a conference about decentralization and get paid in Federal Reserve notes, but that's just me. So I'm able to live this lifestyle, but it took quite a journey to get there. And I want to share just briefly how I got to this point and what I'm doing back in Houston, which is where I'm from, and how we are encouraging other people and actually building free decentralized communities around the country, and it is happening all over the world, using a concept that we call freedom cells. So the journey for me started about I'd say 12 years ago. I've been a journalist and an activist for 7 years and 4 years now. But my path to awakening, as we often put it, when people start talking in terms of reevaluating everything they've ever been taught about governments, about history, about education, about health. And when you look at the world with fresh eyes, with an open heart, and like, wow, I've been lied to by all the people that I was told to trust. My teachers, my principals, my parents, my religious leaders and things of that sort. People that, when you're, at least for me, I'll speak from my own experience, as a child, I looked around all these adults, all these big humans, and thought, like, wow, they've got everything figured out. These people, they seem to just have so much together, and I don't know if I'll ever feel that way. And then I get to the age that they were when I was looking at them, and I'm like, man, I don't have anything figured out yet. I'm still learning. And I don't think they ever did either. They just put on this role that people like to play, like we've got things figured out. In reality, we're all still learning. So when you start to go through that awakening, that reevaluating what you were told, and creating your own culture, your own belief system, and deciding, does what I've been told in the history books by the teachers and all these various supposed authority figures, does it actually fit with what I know to be true and valuable within my belief systems? And in 2010, I started to do that process. I started to question everything that I was told about the world, and a lot of it came from some of the people that are speaking at this conference. That's really cool. Like one of the first books I read in 2009, 2010 that made me reevaluate things was a book by Ron Paul, who will be speaking tomorrow. It's called Revolution Manifesto. That was very influential in my journey. And then about a year later, I took a 3-month bike tour across Texas. It was my first kind of journey into the decentralized lifestyle. I sold everything I owned, gave up all my stuff, quit my job. I was managing a restaurant. I just gave up everything because I didn't know what made sense anymore, and I just needed to go out there and connect and find myself and try to find other people. And while I was traveling on the road, I listened to an audio book called American Conspiracies, written by Jesse Ventura. And, excuse me. And that was a really important book as well. So it's cool to come here now to have those experiences and to connect with them in person. But even though that was the beginning of me questioning politics and questioning political authorities, my personal journey actually was a little bit before then. And as I've started to speak about these things at conferences around the country and even now in Mexico and write about these things, I've come to realize that there are others who see this journey, this awakening, not only as one in the sense of questioning the physical manifestations of power, but what I would consider to be more of a spiritual or emotional awakening as well, because I reevaluated the way I view myself and the way I connect to other people. And for me, that came about from going to prison. I was locked up in 2005, 12 years ago, and the week before I turned 21, I'm 32 now, I was 20 years old, and I was arrested for possession of crystal meth. I was addicted to crystal meth for about 11 months, and I spent that 11 months just kind of, the stereotypical, try it one day, and within 10 months I'm locked up. Lost everything I had, lost friends, relationships, lost jobs, ended up being homeless, and really getting sucked into the drug dealing world, which now, personally, in my views now, I don't really have a problem with drugs. I think people are free, they own themselves, and they should be free to do what they want with their body. I don't think crystal meth is going to help anybody achieve any kind of enlightenment or any sort of positive thing at all, but I believe that's your choice to do so if you want to. And also, I think that at the end of the day, drug dealers are simply just filling a void in the market that the state tries to control. People want plants, they want drugs, and somebody's going to supply it, and when the state tries to prohibit those things, people will do it. And the people I worked with, they're happy to supply those things, and they're not always the best people. But those are the kind of people that will fill that void when the state tries to prohibit free people from doing business together. And I didn't know all those things at the time. I was just very lost, I was very confused. I spent most of my early adult, my childhood, being depressed, and I had a couple of different suicide attempts and different things that I won't go into too much today because I don't have much time. This talk I usually give is about an hour and a half, and I have 25 minutes. So, in this process though of getting to understand where was this coming from? Why was I choosing to use drugs? Because the crystal meth was basically the latest in a several-year run of ecstasy, Xanax, and just very self-destructive patterns. I mean, ecstasy, MDMA, has a lot of beneficial properties to it, but I was not in a good place, and I was abusing these substances. I wasn't getting anything of value. I was, like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Let me just eat 10 hits acid and see how things go. Or, that's a true story. We'll talk about that one later. Or, let's eat a bunch of ecstasy, or let's eat a handful of Xanax. Things will work out great. And so it was a bunch of self-destructive behavior, and eventually it led me to trying crystal meth, and that led me to getting addicted, and as I said, losing everything, and getting arrested and going to prison. I was arrested in November 2005, and I was sentenced to 2 years felony probation, plus a concurrent sentence of 1 year in a Texas state facility. And that began a process between 2005 to 2008 of cycling in and out of institutions. And I ended up doing a total of 18 months behind bars in Texas institutions. So by the summer of 2008, fall of 2008, I was released for the final time. I was now released with that X on my back, as they say, as a felon, coming out into the free world. It's funny because inside when you're in prison, they call this place the free world. Obviously, it's more free than in there, but we also know that it could be more free out here. So I came out into this world. Obama was like the shining light. People thought this dude was either going to be the Antichrist or save the world. And I didn't know much about politics, but as I said, I started to question things. Going to prison led me to asking myself, why did I start using these drugs? What was the root cause of my, what was I trying to avoid? Or what was the deeper root issue that I was trying to cover up? Why did I feel like crap? Why did I have this depression, this suicide, all these things? And I discovered meditation while I was in prison. And I just started meditating. That's why meditation, spiritual awareness, healing, the message of healing is really intrinsic to what I do. And I know we're here at a conference about cryptocurrency and finance, and we're talking about internet and blockchain and all kinds of different concepts. So some of you might not be certain how healing and drug addiction plays into that. But I guarantee you, among all of our great people here at this conference in all these different rooms, there are people with insecurities, with doubts and fears that each of us possess and pick up on our way throughout our path in this life. And those doubts, fears, and insecurities, when they are not addressed, not noticed, addressed, and then healed through various processes that you may choose on your own, whether that be therapy, meditation, psychedelic therapy, just a good conversation with somebody else that you know actually cares about you, and some empathy from another human being. If those things do not go addressed, those doubts, fears, and insecurities can turn into much darker behaviors. And I'm not just after a world where we have free internet all over the world, or we've got cryptocurrency being widely adopted. I'm after a world that is going to completely, radically alter everything that we've been doing. Like, the world itself is in a dark place, not just because we have the wrong president, or not just because we need a new form of government or anything like that. The issues go much, much deeper than that. They're rooted deeper than that, and they're rooted in each of us. I believe that the suffering and the pain and the things we see in the world are really a reflection of what we see inside each of us in different ways. And I'm not saying each of us are, we're all horrible people and we're suffering these different things. Because when I give this talk, the beautiful thing is people will come up to me and say, I've never suffered from drug addiction. I've never touched a drug in my life. But this is how I was hurt. This is the habit I picked up. This is the destructive thing that I was doing. And, they found a way to get through it. So my goal in sharing this story is to help you understand that I think that we all have a lot of healing to do if we're ever really truly going to create a decentralized world like Nexus wants to, and like people with Bitcoin want to, and that many of us want to. It's not just about changing the superficial structures and replacing the Federal Reserve note with crypto won't get at the root cause of why humans are willing to go to war against each other, or why we are able to be manipulated by other authoritarians. That comes from a root cause. And I recognize that about myself. I realized that I couldn't care about what was going on in the world. I couldn't care about the wars and the surveillance and the violence and all these things that were happening before I ever woke up, because I couldn't even care about myself. If you would come to me with this information back at that time, I would have said, dude, that's really screwed up, man, but I'm just trying to make it through another day. I was in a very dark place, and it took me being able to connect, to stop, to slow down, and just, I started writing my thoughts all the time. It's very helpful for me to just see what was in my head and where was this pain coming from, what was the root of it. And so that led me to activism, and I started a group called the Houston Freethinkers in 2010, and over the last few years I've become a freelance investigative journalist. That's what I do full time now. I write for several different websites, and that's how I pay my bills, crypto. I haven't got my landlord to accept Bitcoin yet, but we're working on it. So as Terry mentioned though, now I'm touring the country as part of the Decentralize Your Life tour. We've already gone 2 weeks around Texas. We did 5 weeks across the Midwest and West Coast, and then 2 more weeks we're headed to the East Coast. And by the end of it, we'll have visited 49 cities across this country, promoting cryptocurrency, promoting meditation, promoting decentralization, promoting anarchism, promoting all these concepts that are about decentralization. And I'm telling you that every city we've visited, whether it's a crowd of 2 people or a crowd of 20 or 30 people, they understand these concepts. But I think the problem is that so many people who believe in these things is that we get trapped in our bubbles and we're not really speaking to a broader audience. Like, you know, I come from the movement of libertarians and anarchists who tend to, I think, focus on just like our inner debates and only preaching to the choir, and I've been making a deliberate effort to do more than that, to reach out to other people, because people who are associated with the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Zeitgeist movement, the Ubuntu movement, or anarchists already, they get the concepts. And I'm talking about college, high school kids to 70 to 80-year-old grandmothers. They understand these concepts. They understand the idea that we don't need to rely on centralized systems. And it may have taken them a long time to finally realize, okay, the government's not the answer, the Federal Reserve's not the answer. But now they're open to it, and they're looking for solutions. And as I said, people like Jim, Colin, they're going to be the ones to create it. You know, I use computers to promote messages, to edit videos and things of that sort. That's about my limitation. But I'm thankful for the people who are behind the scenes building these things so that someone like me can come along and actually put it in practice and to live it and show people like, no, this isn't just some niche, you know, geek online cryptocurrency thing that's never going to have value. Here's how you go buy your gas with cryptocurrency. Here's how you can fly across the country with cryptocurrency. You know, all these different things. So I'm thankful for them. What time is it? Anybody got time? I don't know.
1:16.
Cool. All right. So one of the big concepts that I'm promoting on this tour and what I've been doing in Houston, so I live in the Freethinker House. It's a community space where the activist community that I started in Houston, Freethinkers, we have our meetings there. It's a 3-bedroom house with me and 2 other guys. We have monthly benefit shows, so we bring local artists, bands there. We have a big community garden where anybody can come, you know, get involved, plant some food, learn about taking care of themselves. The whole concept is that we're trying to show people what this hub of activity of bringing people who are freedom-minded, who are thinking in a decentralized manner, bringing us together and having a hub of activity that people can see, okay, this is what it looks like. And that's what we're taking that message around the country. It's been me, Miriam, my partner, and my 2 housemates at the house going around the country and showing people all the programs and all the ideas we've been doing. And the house is based on a concept that I call freedom cells. And if you guys don't mind, I would love for each of you to, you know, in your free time, check out freedomcells.org. It's CELLS.org, freedomcells.org. This is a social network that's already out there, but we're not trying to replace Facebook. We're not trying to do any of that sort of thing because we're like the anti-Facebook. It's a social media network in the sense that you can sign up, you can join, create a profile, that kind of stuff. But the goal is for you to connect and meet other people locally and then to meet in the real world and actually start organizing. So let me break down the concept a little bit. When you visit freedomcells.org, you'll see a whole host of videos that I've shot on this concept. You'll see an explanation, but basically freedom cells are peer-to-peer decentralized groups that come together for the purpose of skill sharing, knowledge sharing, defense, preparedness. I mean, really the potential with this concept is unlimited. We can do so many. You can have a freedom cell, which is ideally 8 to 10 people that are focused on just growing cryptocurrency in their communities. Maybe you guys are the ones that are, okay, let's start reaching out to local businesses and local artisans and getting them to accept cryptocurrency. Maybe you have a freedom cell that just focuses on preparedness and relief efforts. For example, the hurricane just hit Houston recently, and I did a video called Freedom Cells Weather Emergencies, and how this concept could be applied to dealing with any weather emergency. And it has unlimited potential, as I said, but the goal is you start with your core group of 8 people. So we've got the house, and we have the people that live there, we have a few others involved, and we wanted to make sure that, for example, each of us had a backup supply of food. For example, again, a weather emergency. If a weather emergency happens, we saw all the grocery stores wiped out in food and water and gas very quickly. You could end up in a situation that's dangerous and maybe not something you want to deal with. So having a freedom cell gives you this hub of people to, okay, let's make sure we all have 3 months worth of backup supply of food. So you got 7 other people now that you can count on that you know are equally prepared as you. Let's all make sure that we each have a Bitcoin wallet or a Nexus. Then we got some Nexus. So you've got 7 to 8 other people that you can rely on, that you can count on, whether it's storing food, making sure that everybody has some form of self-defense. Maybe you're into firearms, you want to make sure your whole group knows how to shoot and properly use a firearm. Maybe you want to make sure that everybody in your group understands permaculture, or you want to make sure that everybody's got cryptocurrency. You want to make sure that everybody's got like an emergency bug out bag. I mean, again, the potential is based on what you and your community's needs are. So it's a decentralized thing. I give examples in my book, Manifesto of the Free Humans, and we've been doing videos promoting the concept, but what it will be ultimately depends on the people that choose to adopt it. So if you imagine this first core group, you have the Freedom Cell in Houston, for example. And if you go to freedomcells.org, you can locate all these. They're all over the world. I've been promoting this concept for 2 years now. And when I first started doing videos about it, I was contacted by people in Germany, in New Zealand, Brazil, and all over the US who said, hey, we're already doing this. We call it circles, or we call them hubs, or they have different names, or they didn't have a name. The name doesn't matter. I don't really care. What's important is that you take the concept and start organizing locally, because then what we have is you have this first hub. Each member, once you start teaching each other, educating each other, being able to defend each other, and you start using decentralized tools like Cell 411. If you haven't heard of Cell 411, check that one out. It's a private emergency alert system, so you don't have to rely on the state to come help your community out. So you've got 7 or 8 other people that if an emergency happens, you guys have a cell on the Cell 411 app, and you send out an alert, and whoever's nearby can come render aid and help out. Maybe you're using Nextdoor.com. Please look up all these apps. Nextdoor.com, Cell 411, freedomcells.org. Nextdoor.com is another private social network, but it's geared specifically to your neighborhood. So instead of just broadcasting to Facebook and all your friends all over the world, you're talking to the people local to you. And if we can't convince our neighbors the need for decentralization and for community power and neighborhood power and independence, then we're going to end up in a very dangerous situation when those people, and if all your neighbors are basically dependent on these centralized systems, if those systems crash, what do you think that situation's going to look like? I mean, they're going to be running to FEMA for help, or they're going to be going to loot and riot and do whatever they can. And also, on a sort of propaganda level, if everybody around you is a statist and believes that the government is the answer, the Federal Reserve Bank is the answer, or these centralized systems are the answer, it's going to be very difficult for you to be promoting your decentralized options. So I would use something like Nextdoor.com, and that's what we've been doing to connect the people closest to you. But once you got your first hub, each person is then encouraged to turn around and start a secondary group, and maybe one a little bit more local to their neighborhood instead of being spread out. Like in Houston, we're a pretty big city, so one of our Freedom Cell members might be 30 minutes away from another. And again, in an emergency, that's not the most convenient. But you get your 8 people, each one turns around and starts a second group. So then you've got 8 groups of 8 to 10 people, 80 to 100 people around one area. Now imagine as this concept is starting to grow and take place all over the country and all over the world, you can see these little, basically it's like a nexus. They're like connecting together. They're creating this larger grid, which is decentralized. Each Freedom Cell is going to look different than the other based on their environment, their needs, and their interests. But at the same time, they can connect and they can share ideas. They can share, they can exchange goods. They can exchange cryptocurrency. And imagine if you're using websites like freedomcells.org and others, and as you're traveling, you're able to connect to the local people. And let me make sure I go support the businesses that are using crypto and that are of my same beliefs and my same principles, rather than having to go use the mainstream systems, which are typically centralized as well. Personally, I don't want to keep coming to these conferences. I don't want to just get paid to speak in places and come to beautiful Aspen and all this great stuff and these auditoriums where people put a lot of money and time into. Like, I really and legitimately want to change the world. I don't want to be 60 years old and still coming to conferences and talking about these ideas. And, I want us to actually achieve these goals, And to do that, it's going to take action. It's going to take more than just listening to speakers and go home from this conference and change everything about your life. Actually adopt these principles, because otherwise, and I said this yesterday and I love saying it everywhere, otherwise this is just a big circle jerk, and we're all just here to stroke each other's egos, and we're just here to pat each other on the back. I want to change the world. I actually want to give the next generation something different than what we've had. And in order to do that, we have to change ourselves. We have to change our actions. We have to change our habits. It won't happen until we do that. So cryptocurrency can play a role, decentralization can play a role, but ultimately it depends on us and the way that we live our lives. Thank you guys for your time.